So as David said, we make scientific instruments and we build them in Silicon Valley, which is normally a foreign concept. I mean, nobody builds hardware in Silicon Valley, but we're crazy enough to do it anyway. I hope in my 180 seconds that I have up here, I'm going to show you something that maybe you haven't seen before. And so what you're seeing right now is a typical pollution source. It's a complicated beast. Measuring emissions that come off of a source like this is really, really, really hard and is limited to some of the best scientists in the world because you've got to produce data that are defensible in a typical scenario. So how simple can we actually make that process? And what if we can make that process as simple as getting into an automobile and just driving by the source of pollution? So let's look at a couple of these sources. Here's a refinery on the San Francisco Peninsula. What we're doing is we're driving public roads, and in this case, we're measuring methane. Now, methane is a natural gas, 25 times more potent than CO2. It's also a proxy for things that will hurt you in more real time, like volatile organic compounds, things that will cause cancer. So by being able to measure the emissions and looking at methane, for example, we can get an understanding of what the real-time flux is coming off of these refineries without ever having to get access to that refinery and doing it on our own time. And again, essentially at really, really low levels or high levels of simplicity. This is what a fracking location looks like in Texas when you drive by. Here's another location in Texas when you drive by. But let's not talk about Texas for a moment. Let me take you to a part of the world that you might actually understand, the self-proclaimed greenest city in the nation. Let's look at the methane emissions that are coming off of that city. Now again, this is with a kid with a driver's license driving the highest precision instruments in the world, producing these hyper-visual three-dimensional maps. What you were looking at, there are methane sources. They could be coming from swamps, rotting moose, or natural gas leaks. Natural gas leaks are a real problem. Let me take you now to measuring CO2 emissions at the urban scale. When you hear people in the press talking about measurement and verification of emissions at the city level, just understand they're actually not measuring their emissions, they're calculating them, which is great. Great, go ahead and do that. But at some point, you actually have to get on the scale. In fact, one of our scientific customers once said, look, not measuring emissions is like going on a diet, counting cheeseburgers and Twinkies and never getting on the scale. So scientifically, this is what the emissions look like off of a city like Indianapolis in real time. So we can be downwind and actually understanding what's happening with the emissions coming off of a city. Now again, I said that's really, really complicated, and it requires precision of instrumentation on the order of measuring a part per billion in 1 second. That's like measuring the increase or decrease of the population of China every second by 1.5 individuals. But there's science involved. So where are we going to put that science? So again, we're going to have somebody drive in a car that's automatically going to send that data to a processing platform, essentially a cloud structure, where the science is going to be embedded. And then we're going to be able to distribute those hypervisual three-dimensional maps to anyone with a smartphone, anyone with a browser, anybody that has access to that, and anyone within any of those constituencies. And when I speak to the people within those constituencies, whether or not they're regulators or whether or not they're anyone else, the real question I have for them is, do you really want to know? Thank you. Wow.